Hi guys, and welcome back to the Bird Photography Show with Glenn Bartley
Hey everybody.
and me, Jan Wegener.
Before we get started, just want to say a quick thank you to our sponsor for this episode, which is Lenscoat. Jan and I have both been using Lenscoat's products for years to protect our gear and cover ourselves up in the field. They make a bunch of cool stuff, and we'll talk about a few things later on in this episode, but thank you Lenscoat for sponsoring this episode. In our last episode, you shared with us a few cool photos, but you were just getting back from your trip. Can you share maybe another story or some more photos from your awesome Outback adventure?
I've done a lot of editing over the last 2 weeks. I'm still not even halfway through all the photos because there's actually more nice keepers than I expected. So that's a good problem to have, I suppose. And one moment that stood out to me was a family of inland dotterels that I found. It's a bird, a shorebird that lives in the middle of nowhere in the hot outback. What I always find amazing is also these tiny little flowers growing everywhere in this really harsh environment.
Very cool bird, one that I've seen in the Aussie Field Guide and definitely one that I'd love to see someday.
And there's another bird in that sort of same area that even has very similar colors. It's the cinnamon quail thrush. And we were driving down in nice light, see this bird fly across the road, quickly stop the car, get out, and there's this cinnamon quail thrush just running over these little rocks and these little flowered hills on the side of the road.
That's a nice prize to come home from the Outback with. What were some of the challenges you faced when it came to editing these images?
Interestingly, I kind of have the same struggle with all these outback photos, and I think it's because of the red rocks, a little bit of heat haze, and then a lot of sunlight on the bird. So a lot of the files seem a little bit color cast. I usually use a few curves layers, a few selective colors layers, and some other layers, like a hue saturation layer, for instance, to clean up some of the white in the bird. And I've also used some of the layers from the brush pack that we have recently launched that really helped me, for instance, to clean up the white on the throat. Color cast can really ruin your image. So by removing these and making white feathers neutral, you can make your images truly stand out.
Well, I'm certainly glad to hear that our brush packs came in handy for you. Just so you guys know, we've got a brand new product. Just like when we came out with our Pro Sets, we want to save you time. We want to get you guys great results in the digital darkroom. And our brush packs are for Adobe Photoshop. They're going to let you use our most commonly used adjustment layers. In just the click of a button, you paint them in, and they're going to really help you to make your images shine.
So make sure to check this out down in the description.
Now, the topic of this episode is all about equipment you never knew you needed.
There was definitely a piece of gear I didn't know I needed until I came home from my road trip from the Outback, and that's this crazy looking thing. I don't know what you think this is. It looks pretty crazy, kind of spacey.
It looks like a little vacuum cleaner.
It is the opposite of a vacuum cleaner. It's like a little air blower. So it has this battery powered USB charged motor in it, has a little brush at the front. You have different power settings, and then you turn it on and you can blow all the dust out of your gear. And that would have come in really handy in the Outback because I had this little snot sucker from the chemist with me, but using that a lot on your sensor and your gear gets quite draining for your wrist and also doesn't get the dirt out quite as efficiently. And it comes apart as well, so it packs away pretty small. And like I said, USB charge, and it's definitely something that I will have with me in the field from now on.
You know what else I was thinking? When you were showing that shot of the plovers running around and you had a nice low perspective, one piece of equipment that could really come in handy for something like that is something like this ground pod. So this is made by Lenscoat, and this device is meant to allow you to get super low to the ground when you're shooting. I've got mine here with my Wimberley head attached. And you can use it with this, or you can use it with even lower profile foot if you wanted to. So this is a really cool piece of kit, especially if you really like photographing waterfowl, low on the water, or shorebirds, and you want to be able to crawling around on your belly, moving ahead. This is a really nice stable platform to use.
It's been quite nice. At first I was kind of concerned, is it big enough for 600mm lens? Because it's not that big, it's a decent small size to carry with you and put away, but it was all really nice and stable. Even if it was on a little bit of an angle, it still seemed nice and sturdy. So I was very impressed with it. And I've been using it with one of these flag shooter heads. So that just screws on here nicely, and then it's even more low profile than like the Wimberley head, for instance. Very nice to carry with you, doesn't weigh much. I've been very impressed with this combination in the field. And if you guys want one of these ground pods and one of these awesome covers that come with it, you can let us know in the comments what's your favorite gadget or your favorite piece of gear that you never know you needed. Glenn and I will pick a winner from the comments, and Lenscode will send you one of these ground pots, and you can use it to photograph some awesome shorebirds or ducks or whatever else is low to the ground.
Now, you know, another piece of equipment that I think not everybody carries with them, but I find extremely useful is one of these little power banks. This is one that I have, which is really nice. I just got it off Amazon, and it shows you the percentage remaining. So you're not wondering like, oh, is it almost dead or anything like that? And it's a pretty good size. I mean, you could charge your phone multiple times with this. I could even charge my laptop with it. So that's pretty cool. If you're on a long flight and you're not sure if you're going to have enough juice, you can use this to charge all kinds of devices. So I definitely recommend getting something like this.
I saw your model. I think you said it was from Amazon, but if you guys are using some models, we'd love to hear which ones you're using down there in the comments, because it's definitely something that I will need. I have like one of these huge battery packs that can charge a battery or your laptop in the field for a long time, but this is not necessarily something you have on your shoulder with your camera plugged in while you're photographing. This is more like if you're in camp or whatever, but a little power bank I think would be very handy.
You know, it's another fantastic accessory to have in the field, something that you don't necessarily use all the time, but it's always good to have in the car or on a trip, is a throw blind. Do you ever use one of those kind of throw blinds?
Yes, I don't actually use a blind as much anymore as I used to do in the past, but I definitely have one with me all the time. And they pack up really nice and small, like this Lenscode one that you unpack, you throw it over yourself, you can hide away real easily. And I don't really take any other blind with me. I think the ones that are really big, you sit in, they're so tedious to sort of set up or have with you. That's maybe something if you know there's like a kingfisher coming to the same perch all the time, you might do that. But also think with a throw over blind, you're a lot more flexible because you can be at any height basically. With a lot of other blinds, you kind of premeditated to what height you can shoot at. So the throw blinds is definitely what I'll have with me as well, and they're very handy.
I like to always have a headlamp with me. The thing is, sometimes you're out near the end of the day and all of a sudden you're in the forest and the sun starts going down, and it's really good to have some kind of light with you, that's for sure.
Where do you actually get all these things from that you're just randomly pulling out of your lap?
Those who are longtime watchers of the show will also know that I always have a fanny pack with me in the field. Definitely another accessory that you might not know you need, but I think everybody should have one of these in the field. Let's see what else I got in here. We looked at the headlamp. We looked at the power pack. Oh, look, we got another power pack. I've got another awesome little flashlight in here. This one I love. It's so small, super bright, and I love it because it charges on USB-C. So again, if I needed to charge this, I could use this. I think everybody should have a good headlamp and a good flashlight.
I do have a headlight, but I don't have a flashlight. I'd definitely be open for some good suggestions, but is there more in your little fanny pack?
Of course there is. Well, another thing that I think everybody should always have with them is a good pair of cutters, good pair of clippers. The reason why you'd need these is when we're out looking for nice perches to do setups.
Talking about the scissors, I also have a little handy pair here. I think it's from Cabela's or Bass Pro Shop. It's actually like a foldable pair. So it packs away even smaller, and it's pretty handy to have in the field, and then it's not as long and big as a normal pair.
That's a great one. I've been thinking about making some kind of little holster or something for them, but that's even better. I should try to get my hands on those. And the other thing that you need is some cable ties. And it's really important that you have the right things in order to be able to do a setup. So having those things to snip a branch, attach it to something, but what are you going to attach it to? So another thing that I always have with me is some kind of small little light stand like this one that I can quickly set up.
Yes, we definitely both like doing a setup here and there, especially if you're going to a place and there's a bird feeder, but there's no nice perch for the birds to land on. It's really good to have something with you where you can quickly put up a nice perch and get some nice photos. And I always have this little Novoflex star set with me as well. It's quite pricey, but it's also quite cool. It's these metal poles. It has a spike pole at the bottom as well, so you can actually hammer it into the ground. And then it has these ball heads and these clamps, so you can attach a perch in here and then move it in all directions. So that has come in handy for me in the past as well. But I must say you can definitely do it a lot easier, a lot dirtier by just using one tripod, one branch, or you can even use a tomato stake, or in the past I've even attach it to a tree, or you just take one big stick on the ground and attach another one to the side. So you don't have to go too fancy, but these tools can definitely come in handy and are very important if you want to get nice bird photos.
Well, we hope you guys have found at least one of these items to be useful, something that maybe you didn't know you needed, but now you can go out and get and help you to get some better bird photos. And remember, we want you guys to let us know the most useful accessories, things that you don't think that other people might know about, down in the comments, and we're gonna pick one of you to win one of the Lenscoat ground pods. So make sure you drop in a comment down there below.
Hopefully Glenn and I are going to hear about a lot of things that we didn't know we needed. And now it's time for everyone's favorite segment, the photo of the week. You guys tagged your images on Instagram with the hashtag BirdPhotoShow, and Glenn and I picked 6 images this week again. There's almost 40,000 images tagged, so it's a bit of a task now, but I think we found some good ones, didn't we? What's your first pick?
Okay, so the first image that I've brought for us this week is of this Sulawesi pitta. It's a really beautiful little bird here. It's on a nice little perch. I really like the shot. I like the kind of curious little pose. The one thing that I would probably have done differently here is I think I would have cropped it a little bit tighter. I guess what I'm not crazy about is the part on the upper left where there's sort of a very strong line there between the sort of more vibrant green and then the less vibrant green. So I might have cropped a bit tighter and then done a bit of cloning to kind of make it a little more uniform, that part of the background. What do you think about this shot, Jan?
I totally agree. The one thing I look at straight away with this image is that very bright green harsh line, probably the edge of the tree. So I agree. I probably wouldn't have cropped it tight. I think the tightness is fine, but I definitely would have worked on that line. I could probably see myself desaturating some of that green, then adding a little bit of green behind the pitta, and then also working on that sharp line a little bit just to balance out the whole background. And this is definitely something you could do with one of our brush pack layers to just desaturate that green to get it not so strong in the picture, because I think you look at the red belly of the bird, but then the bird head is kind of dull. So you're not kind of drawn into the bird's head, but that's often what makes the photo. Yep. So you want to make sure that the bird's head stands out enough and you're not kind of looking from the belly to the background and kind of missing the rest of the bird. I brought a pitta as well this week, a barbelly pitta from Vietnam by Pascal de Monk. And that bird just has completely crazy colors to me. It's not really shades of green or blue that are that common in birds, I feel like. So it's a very unique colored bird, especially because it has these flesh colored feet as well. It's like almost a very random selection of colors. All in all, a pretty cool image. And what do you think about it, Glenn?
I mean, it's definitely an amazing bird, that's for sure. One I'd love to see. These old world pittas are so cool. You know, I love the ant pittas in the New World, but when you see the colors and the patterns of these old world ones, it's hard to hold a candle to them. I really like the image too. Okay, so the next image that I've brought for us this week is of this red-billed hornbill by Ninachka Njoki. Not sure if I pronounced that right. But anyways, it's a really cool bird. It's a great calling pose, or possibly regurgitating something pose, and it's on a pretty cool perch. But Jan, let's play the game. There's something in this image that draws my eye. What do you think that might be?
I think there's actually 2 things that draw my eye in that I would probably change. First of all, it's a decent perch, but I'm not super stoked about the upper bit that almost looks like cut off. So I'd be very tempted to clone out that dead part, leave the bark part, and it would look really rustic, really cool. So that's something I would do. And then I see some strange kind of banding lines or cloning lines or something else happening in the background. So not entirely sure what happened there, but I think whenever we're editing, we want to be careful that we don't have things like that in the shot.
The shot is overall really good, but those lines are so distracting. So that definitely needs to be cleaned up. And that's a great call about the perch. I do that often where you have one part, but as long as there's enough bark or texture around it, you just remove the sort of boring part and get rid of that. And especially given that it's just on a blue sky background, it would be so easy to do. Overall, a really nice shot, but just be sure to keep an eye open for anything that could be distracting like that in the backgrounds. And in this case, it'd be really, really easy to fix. So just watch for that next time.
And there's a cool trick as well. If you open a levels layer in Photoshop and you pull the darks all the way to the right and then you pull the lights up as well, your image will look really disgusting, but you can actually now see all the weird things you may have done to your image. If you did cloning or if you copied something over, you will see lines or you'll see banding coming up. So this is always a very good thing if you just want to sort of test your image to see if you've done any dodgy work or if there's any banding showing up. So I do that from time to time if I've cloned or if I think there's some banding, because this trick will show it for sure.
Great tip. Okay, Jan, what's your next image?
Yes, the next image is of this owl from Chile, and I'm not entirely sure which species it is. Do you know, Glenn?
Well, it's a pygmy owl, and the one that lives down there is the austral pygmy owl. So I'm going to go with austral pygmy owl for this guy.
All right, let's go with that. And it's just an image that I quite liked. Lately, I'm not drawn so much to images with a completely clean background. So this one actually appealed to me because it's clean enough, but it's also showing the bird kind of in the tree. And I also liked how the warmth of the sunlight is kind of coming in from one side shining onto the bird and the other side being kind of cool, giving this sort of effect of like very low sunlight, the owl sitting in the tree. It's kind of becoming night. It's probably getting ready to hunt or something. So I thought it was just an overall nice image and also really nice eye contact.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is a good example of a situation where I often say nature is messy. And sometimes that messiness, and we've seen examples already on this episode of where the messiness in the background is detracting from the image. But sometimes when you have just sort of a nice even pattern and there is a lot going on there, but it actually complements the image, that can be really nice. And as you say, sometimes preferable to just that sort of totally clean background. It's just that it doesn't always work out that way. So in this case, it did. And I think it's a really nice image from Daniel here. All right, so the last image I've brought for us this week is a bird that was one of my favorites when I was in Western Australia, of the splendid fairy wren. And it's a stunning bird, and Jess Hartley has got this bird up on a really nice little perch, and it's got the potential to be a really nice shot. But once again, Jan, what do you think that I might find slightly distracting in this image?
I think first of all, it's a very difficult lighting situation. You have the kind of dark bird in the shade, and then you have a very bright background with kind of blown out sort of sticks on the left-hand side. So if this was my photo, I would probably try to warm up the foreground a little bit, because I think the foreground has a bit of a blue cast, especially against that very yellow background. So I'd probably definitely tone down the background a little bit.
Wait, hang on a second, Jan. You're totally right. This is exactly what I was talking about, was this, too much contrast essentially between the background and the foreground. We had the bird in the shade and the background in the sun. Now, before we get into editing ways to fix this, which you're absolutely right, it's also possible that in the field, Jess could have realigned themselves. Now, the light angle on the bird doesn't matter, but if we could have somehow lined up with a shadowy background, then all of a sudden we might have a more balanced image to start with and then be able to process from there, as opposed to having, a very bright background and a kind of darker bird. And they've probably already worked on this image to a certain extent. It's also possible that the whole background was bright sun and there was nothing you could do in the field other than take the picture and then post-process for that. So now back to you, Jan. What else could you do to make this image look better in the darkroom?
Yes, before I was so rudely interrupted, I was gonna say that I would probably tone down the background a bit. So I think the key here would be to just balance out the colors in the whole image, make the bird and the foreground a little bit warmer, put more saturation in the perch. I think that would really help as well to make that stand out a bit more. You could also just brush a little bit over that very bright corner to kind of balance it out. Is that what you would do, or is there other things you're thinking?
What we're trying to do is just bring the foreground and the subject and the background, to be more balanced. That's really the take home here. However you do it, whether it's in the actual taking of the picture or in the darkroom, in this situation, we need to balance the subject and the background some way.
And now we've trash talked this really awesome image so much, I think we shouldn't forget that it's actually a really cool shot of a really nice bird in a very difficult lighting situation. So we're just trying to give you some tips, but this is definitely a great looking photo.
Totally.
The last image I brought is probably almost the only bird I didn't get to see on my recent road trip. We were nailing everything, but we didn't see a banded lapwing. So I saw this image and I'm like, this guy, Scott Williams, got it exactly where I was, but I didn't get to see it. He got to see it, and he also took a very nice photo of it. And I think it's a beautiful image. You see all the nice flowers. It's nice and low enough to give you a good angle on the bird.
It's a cool looking shorebird, that's for sure. Overall, a really nice shot. And, I always say, you never get all the birds you're after. And this must have to be one that means you'll have to go back to that area again. Another opportunity to go on an awesome trip. Speaking of awesome trips, we're glad you came along on this trip with us on this episode. We hope you found a few cool gear, gadget items. Make sure you let us know things that you think we should know about for future. And in the meantime, Be sure to leave us that comment, subscribe, and like the video, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Bye, guys.